What's going on, Corpus Christi? Welcome to episode 130 of Talking Throws Podcast, Texas Style. I'm Coach Jason.
And I'm Coach Janelle.
We're throws coaches with the Throwing Factory. You can go to the website to check out our bios. On that website as well, you're going to find information for Fiber Sports, for ForthThrows.com, a link for Michelle Gregorovich, also our shopping apparel, also two links for our podcast. So if you might have missed the podcast, from season 1 or season 2 a long time ago, you can go back and search and look those up as well. We want to thank our sponsors for season 8. Without them, we can't do what we do. We want to thank Texas Track and Field Coaches Association, led by Mr. Stuart Cantor. The 2025 Winter Clinic is about to happen basically in a couple months in Waco. So if you haven't registered, go to that website and register. I know Joe Brown is doing the discus, and then Michelle Carter is doing the shot put talk. It's a 2-day conference, so go register for that. ForthThrows.com, quality implements priced right. They have upped their social media game, so you're going to see a lot of information coming about discus, javelin, hammers, anything you need for the throwing aspect. Go to ForthThrows.com. The Heels do a great job of doing the right thing about throwing and helping you out with whatever you need. So that website is ForthThrows.com, but use the code TalkingThrows10 to get that 10% off. That code again is TalkingThrows10 to get that 10% off. Fiber Sports Discus, a new way to get the distance. That website is fibersports.com. You can actually go to ForthThrows.com and purchase a Fiber Sports Discus. Just be sure to use that code TalkingThrows10 to get that 10% off. Mr. Caldwell, Bruce Caldwell, is the founder and chief executive officer of Fiber Sports Discus. So if you have anything concerns about Fiber Sports or question why it might be better than the Nelco or any other disc, go to the website and check out that research. NTX Timing, Carl Hornbeck and his crew needs to run your meet. If you're trying to organize meet and do all this and set stuff up, well, let Carl and his crew kind of organize it and get those results and get them posted and get rid of the old Excel spreadsheet form that we all used to do with entries and doing all that type of stuff. He could just take the process and make it easier for you, and your meet can be more effective. And if it's more effective, then more people want to come and participate in it. So his website is ntxtiming.com, and just tell him that the Talking Throws podcast sent y'all. Thank Big Fox Colleyville for all the things they do. Lifting DFW. If you need any personal training lessons, Olympic lifting, powerlifting, whatever you need, hopefully Lifting DFW can help you out with that. Reach me through that website. Remind everybody too about our YouTube channel. We're starting to get a lot of subscribes and downloads out of that, and listens and views. So just continue to support that because we're trying to put names and faces besides the voices as well. Today's guest is the current throws coach at Texas A&M Corpus Christi. He has over 10 years of coaching at the collegiate level. He's had stops at Stephen F. Austin. He's had another stop at an NAIA school that kind of started him in the coaching world. He was an all-conference shot putter while he was attending college at Southeastern Missouri State in Missouri. In high school, he was a multi-sport athlete coming out of the state of Missouri as well. Please welcome to episode 130 of season 8, Coach Andy Glass. So, Coach, get us started. You just made this move to Texas A&M Corpus Christi. How's it going so far? Kind of tell us about the big picture for the track program. And Coach Jackson, I think, is the head coach, kind of his vision for what's going on.
Yeah, so Coach Jackson, he's starting his second year leading this program. He was formerly at UCF, Central Florida, and got to be a part of some really good track and field programs. And he's a distance coach. And one of the things that made me really interested in this program is he said, we want to be great at 2 areas, right? We want to be great in our distance program, which they've been historically. They had a 3-time national champion in the distance. So, a 3-time D1 national champion is outstanding for a mid-major. And he said, we also want to be outstanding in our throws group. There's going to be schools that can beat us across the board and can be more well-rounded than us. But we can be better in those 2 groups, and we can outscore everybody at the conference championship. So that's our goals, and that obviously aligns with what I'm trying to build. So yeah, that's why I jumped aboard here. And then everything that Corpus Christi has to offer, I think is just outstanding. Most of your mid-major programs are in a much smaller town. We've got beautiful beaches around us. We've got good places to eat. If kids want to go watch live music, they can go to the Bank Center. We got Jelly Roll coming down. We got Brooks and Dunn coming down.
Really? Wow.
We got huge acts. It's the 7th biggest metro area in Texas. So we have a ton of people that are coming down here. So if people give us a chance and want to come for an official visit, I think they're amazed at what they're going to see. So I'm really, really excited about this program. I got hired in June, and then I spent a good portion of June getting moved down, getting onboarded and everything. So I really hit the ground running, moved in my house June 21st. And from June 21st to about August 21st, so about 2 months, we added 8 individuals to our team for this fall. So we've got a total of 11. We've got, I think it's 4 freshman boys. I've got 3 of my transfer athletes followed me from SFA. We looked at a few others where we really wanted to get them here, but luckily they got great offers elsewhere, and we fully support them in that. And ultimately, we just want some more love for the throws. But then we found some really great additions out there on the transfer portal, and again, people that came on their visit and just fell in love, just like I did.
Yeah. So your mascot's the Islanders, and now I've never been to the campus. So you're actually is it on an island, right?
It's actually on an island. It feels like a resort in Cancun to me. If I had a Mai Tai in my hand, I'd complete the entire picture. So life's been pretty good. We got on campus, we've got what we call a breezeway. So it walks from the back side of the island all the way through all the buildings, and you can see the bay right on through it. It's an absolutely beautiful campus. We've got palm trees everywhere. It's outstanding. And then our track and field facility is 4 minutes away. So, again, life's pretty good.
So what's the direction of the discus ring? Where do we catch the wind at?
So we've got a pretty, Ramona is now like Throwstown Ramona. We're the opposite of that because we've got a tailwind pushing our discus right on down. So I've got to get another discus pad built so we can practice throwing in the wind because it's consistent. It's there every single day, and some days it's quite strong coming off of the bay. So yeah, there's some days where the wind's blowing pretty strong and we're throwing discus and we're like, why in the world is this not going? It's like, because it's the exact opposite wind of what you want, right? Yeah. So, once I get that pad built up, I think we're going to see some things be flying around here.
Awesome. Yeah. So how many shot put rings, and do you have a hammer cage and all that stuff down there?
Yeah. So we've got a hammer cage, hammer discus cage. We've got a shot put circle with a beautiful sector, and then we've got a huge open field. We've got a competition javelin runway as well, and then we're making a few additions. So, Coach Jackson puts on 2 cross country meets that fundraise a ton of money. And he's wanting to dump that right back into our program. So, awesome. Better track and field meets for our athletes, better gear for our athletes, and then to upgrade our facility. So it's already a terrific facility, but we're going to add some things like, when I was at SFA, Coach Olson had put in a wall, and so we developed a bunch of drills throwing into a wall. I know John Smith at Ole Miss is a guy that I steal a lot of training from, pick his brain quite a bit. And he does about 2/3 of his training into a net. And so, there's a few tips and tricks that are specialized to our wall. So we're going to build that. We're going to do it, 2 of them facing one another. We're going to roof it. We're going to throw a net behind. So we can get our volume of throws up really quickly. And I can have, 4 or 5 throwers going at one time. And I can just, basically bark out orders.
Oh, wow.
And you don't really have to deal with cold, maybe some wind and rain, but you're not going to get too cold to be outside.
No, I mentioned it a couple of times already. Life's pretty good. Even today was, beginning in November, and it was probably up to 82, 83 down here. And we got a light breeze. It feels pretty nice. And it's been relatively dry. Now I haven't experienced the spring yet. So I'm looking forward to that. But yeah, this fall has been beautiful weather for training. It's a little hot when we get rolling in early September, but the rest of the year has been absolutely beautiful.
Wow. So y'all are well, I don't want to say stepping down because y'all been in there. Y'all are in the Southland Conference, right?
Right. Yeah. So again, in a lot of ways, moving from SFA to Corpus Christi looked like a lateral move, but until you look at everything else we have to offer, I think the city it sells itself, and our campus on its own island sells itself. Our facility sells itself. But then a lot of I chose this career because it's so rewarding outside of the financial aspect. So my hobby is my job, and my job is my hobby, and that makes for a pretty great journey. And then the opportunities that is afforded to my wife and my child. So again, baby girl turns 1 year old tomorrow, and she's going to get a chance for a better education, more opportunities to go as a part of some sports traveling teams. I hope she's an athlete. Mama was a D1 athlete. I was a D1 athlete. So I don't care what she plays, as long as it's not a flute, but hopefully she's an athlete. So we'll see. But yeah, I just think the opportunity here is tremendous.
Wow.
Well, what did your wife do before we move on to something? You said she was an athlete. What's she?
Yeah, she was a soccer player. And then so she was all conference as a sophomore, and then hung up her cleats. She was in nursing school, which is a very difficult major. And she's super sharp. So the only flaw about my wife is that she fell in love with me. So otherwise she's perfect. So she concentrated on the school. I would have done the exact opposite, and hung up her cleats. But she was a pretty darn good soccer player as well. So again, I don't care what my daughter's name is Cameron. I don't care what sport she plays, but I hope she finds her passion, and we're going to support her 100%.
What I'm a big soccer fan. So what position does your wife play?
Well, she was like a center back, mostly defense. Now in high school, I think she was a forward, like a right wing or whatever they would call that. And we'll watch World Cup and everything, and she'll scream her head off and tell me all about the game. And I'm pretty clueless about soccer, so I'm just following along. I can tell you what a goal looks like.
Yeah.
Awesome, for sure. So as far as we're getting back to the recruiting, being in the state of Texas, a lot of great athletes, but some of them might not like throwing as much because they've been told football, volleyball, basketball, or even soccer. So what do you look for, as an upside for throwers, whether that high level kid maybe or that developmental kid that you have a reputation of, kind of developing and building into those conference champions?
Well, yeah, that's a pretty loaded question. I think it's a really good one. So the first thing that I look for is just pure distance in the throws, right? Like, I'm not going to get too caught up into just distance because everybody's technique looks a little bit different. But show me a decent number, right? Number two, what I look for is grades. If you've got some smarts or you're putting in effort, that shows me a lot more than maybe, if you're a 50-foot male that has a coach that's really churning out great thrower after great thrower. And then number three is the biggest, and that's, I look for a good person. There's a lot of people that can be a good thrower, but there's less that can be a great person. So that's what we're hoping to find. And then in terms of athleticism, I'm looking for an X factor. I like the well-rounded athletes. So, I don't hate that they're playing football or basketball or volleyball. We had a girl commit who I'm pretty excited about, really long and tall girl, but she's been a softball player. She's been a volleyball player. Amiria Wooden, who I recruited at SFA, I liked her numbers. I looked at the numbers. I couldn't really find any videos of her throws. And so what I did is I went to Max Preps and I typed in her name in Max Preps and I found her volleyball videos. And Amiria's tall. She's a thrower build, and she skied over everybody else. And so when I saw her and she was spiking a volleyball down on somebody's head, And I'm like, yep, got to get that girl. And I
Yeah.
couldn't find any socials for her. I couldn't find any phone number for her. So I tracked down her coaches and finally found a contact number for her, and I was able to recruit her and get her signed. And
Awesome.
yeah, and so I mean, there's a ton of athletes like that. I recruited a Bree Dow who followed me here to Corpus Christi, and she was a 42-foot shot putter and a 38-foot triple jumper. And I was like, this girl is going to be a javelin thrower. I can feel it in my bones. And she is absolutely a hammer thrower. So I was wrong 100%. But few people I would rather have in the trenches with me than Bree Dow. She's a heck of a worker and just a great all around kid. So that X factor, finding something that makes them special as an athlete. Cord Neal, I'm sure we'll talk about Cord later. But he was a walk-on multi-kid to get started. But he was also a 4.0 pre-med kid and just outworked every single other person. When I would show him a drill, he did it perfectly. He did it. He worked diligently, is what I would say, where he paid attention to every single detail. So what set him apart as an athlete wasn't really anything athletic. It was just he outworked everybody. So there's a ton of different things that I look for, and I'm just looking like what makes you special. We're not looking for kids that can be a successful mid-major athlete. I'm looking for somebody that the big Power 4 schools are overlooking, and that I can build to compete with those schools.
Awesome. Great answer. Just one clarifying question. Do y'all kind of allow someone to maybe do track and field or maybe throws and play volleyball or soccer if that's an option? Is there they don't have football. So is that an option possibility?
We've looked at that in the past. It's difficult to do, but I have had athletes do it. So Corpus Christi is my fourth school. It was more common when I was just getting started in the NAIA. And so we would see a lot of dual sport athletes. But we even had them at SFA as well. Justice Guillory was a heck of a thrower for me. What gets difficult is time management. And then within my program, we get to go through and clean up the details in the fall. So building a technique that we think is more suited to you. And that takes time. And so if they're in football that entire first semester, that gets very difficult. So I'm happy to do it. But it takes a special athlete, somebody that can manage their time well while it's obviously still going to classes and keeping their grades up. But there are a few sports that work, a little bit better than others. Some coaches that work better than others. But track and field, you can definitely do that.
Okay. So what's like if somebody's just going to be a student at Corpus Christi? What's like the big majors? I'm just curious.
I know.
Well, so again, my wife was a nurse, and the nursing program here is terrific. So it's one of the best in the state. And then what I really liked about it is, again, my wife had to put up her cleats to focus on nursing school, because one, nursing school is really difficult, but two, it just wasn't going to allow her to do a team sport and practice with her teammates at the time she needed to. Well, our nursing program here at Corpus Christi works opposite. They're going to work around your schedule a little bit, and they want athletes. And so that's the only nursing department I've ever heard of that really encourages that. Every other nursing department wants to push those away. But in addition to that, our business department is terrific, and our engineering department is terrific. But again, Kines is strong. We've got so many good programs here on the island that we're pretty fortunate.
Awesome. Oh, that's cool. I didn't even know that had that strong a nursing program.
Yep.
For sure. So, NCAA is doing a lot of changes, with the 45 roster and all that type of stuff. Kind of as a mid-major, how are y'all looking at that? I just kind of want to see what y'all are thinking, maybe versus what I'm hearing.
Yeah, well, I think we're all trying to predict what the NCAA is going to do. Yeah. And that kind of gets us in trouble, right? To where well, if we're waiting to be reactive, then we're not very proactive. So I think we're just recruiting the athletes that we think can help out our program. We've got a few highlighted up on the big whiteboard in my office, and some kids that we think are going to be excellent throwers. And so it doesn't matter if what our roster size is or what the scholarship's going to cost us, that these are the kids that we want to go out and get. And so, again, I'm looking for those three things: good thrower, good athlete, good person, good grades. I'm looking for, a little bit of everything. So it doesn't matter if, I, I was just recruiting an international athlete, and he was looking at Oklahoma, Texas, and me. That's a pretty good conversation to be in the ballgame with. And ultimately, he didn't come to me. But I was one of the final three. At Corpus Christi was one of the final three. I was pretty excited about, and if we keep finding those athletes, we're going to start landing them. And then when we do that, we're going to start beating those bigger programs.
Yeah. Educate me on something, because that's kind of the trend of bringing these internationals in. Number one is like, how do you find them? And then number two is the recruitment process and the scholarships, kind of offering and all that. Is that the same? You see what I'm saying? Versus recruiting a high school kid?
Right. Well, it's not apples to apples. So
it's not? Okay.
So I'm not recruiting an international kid if they're, not already a stud, right? I mean, to speak it plainly, if I'm looking international, typically it's going to cost us more scholarship money, but not always.
Okay.
So sometimes their national federation can cover some of the costs, or if their country will sponsor education outside of their home nation. So I've seen a little bit of that. Some schools offer scholarships based on coming from out of country within the U.S. So there's a lot of different programs that you can kind of look at. So again, this athlete that I'm talking about is probably a first-team All-American in the javelin throw. So I was pretty excited about him. I've had a pretty good history of coaching the javelin, but ultimately, he thought that another school was the best choice for him. And I think a lot of that was, the resources. So sure, we're a mid-major. We don't have every single resource, but we've got 90% of them. And then, if you believe in yourself and your coach and the program we're building, I think you can still see the same level of success. And then again, if you match up really well with your coach, you can see more success. So anyway, we're a little bit pickier and choosier when it comes to those international athletes. And then along with that, keep in mind that I don't know that I've ever brought in an international athlete so far in my career. So I've reached out to several, but most of my recruiting is right here, right now in the state of Texas, but then obviously in the USA.
Yeah. I don't know if you listened to our last episode, but we had Julian Ruck on, and Julian just broke the youth national record for Australia when he was like 16, 17 years old. And he wanted to come to States, but he only got one full offer. Yeah. And that was Texas Tech. And the story goes like it was basically sent through email. He never talked to anybody. And then, he shows up in Lubbock.
Yeah. What a change of scenery for him.
Yeah. So
Australia.
a little different than Australia. So I was just kind of, because you hear stories about recruiting these internationals and this guy and all that type of stuff. And you just wondered, if that's a really complicated situation or something, that people do or do not want to do, for sure.
Right. Well, and that's why we're trying to find the athlete that we know is worth it. So they almost have to outperform their scholarship for us because there are some, a few hoops to jump through. So, sometimes there's a language barrier, so that makes the coaching that much more difficult.
Yeah, for sure. So, and you mentioned javelin is you've had a strong history. Is that kind of your event that you really kind of favor versus the others?
Well, I'll tell you what every throws coach I think says. My best event is what my athletes are currently the best in. So, I feel, we've got a pretty good women's program running right now. So I'm really excited about them. We just finished up with a really good shot put day today. So I'm excited for that right now. But no, the javelin has been my bread and butter, and I can't tell you why. We've got really good athletes: Cord Neal, Isaac Kinchel, Asiri Geisler, Angel Richmore, Montana Piper, Cole Zedga. Just so many good javelin throwers that we just helped, hopefully get a little bit better. And one of the things that I think we did is we made a good crew. Like our javelin group had a lot of really good knowledge in it. So that's part of one of those things with having a good team, right? That you're practicing good habits, so that when Cord would practice, Isaac had a really good eye for detail. And so, if Cord missed a throw, maybe I'm teaching Siri something, maybe I'm working with her, and Isaac would say, hey, you're not supinating and pronating like you should. You're a little lazy with that. And so we clean it up on the next throw, right? So that's like having, multiple coaches just floating around our javelin crew. And ultimately, we're trying to do that in our hammer crew and our shot put crew. And most of my ring throwers throw everything, right? They throw everything except the javelin. So, we're just trying to build a good, strong group. And that's what I'm going to build here. It's just going to take me, a year or two, and we'll get that rolling as well. But and Cord was so sharp. Siri knew her stuff. She worked with Coach Blue at Arizona State. So, it's not like I'm definitely not going to take credit for all of them. Cord Neal was already a 63-meter thrower when I got him, and then we got him out to 72, 78, and to the Olympic trials. Siri had already thrown really well, but to get her, I hope I'm not divulging too much information, but she gave birth to her daughter Mila on July 5th or 6th. And then the following year, she took 5th at the U.S. Championships less than a year later. So pretty outstanding while going through a pretty tough situation as well. So that was outstanding, was just helping her get back to the distances that she had been hitting. So again, 5th at the U.S. Championships, and she had a rough fall because she couldn't train like she wanted to. So to help all those kids along the way is really why we do this job as coaches, right? We get to be a part of those special moments in their lives, and that one was up there in the rankings.
I bet.
For sure. So is javelin, would you say javelin is something that is kind of, you find those athletes that it's just natural to them, and they might be, kind of maybe a soccer player or a volleyball player or a center fielder.
Right.
And, they don't find javelin until javelin finds them, as,
Absolutely.
maybe that school. Because it's not the most popular throws event compared to the ring. What's your feeling on that?
Yeah, I think you find some athletes with some ability, just like you would in shot or hammer or weight or any of the throwing events. But javelin, if you show me something early in the first 2 weeks, then I can pretty well pick out if you're going to be a javelin thrower or not. And then we build your training, and then that separates the men from the boys, so to speak. But again, there's plenty of times where I'm like, oh, that kid's going to be a hammer or weight thrower, and I'm wrong, right? And they end up being a javelin thrower. I think the opposite. So sometimes, the event finds them. And then, obviously, I like to think that coaching goes a long way. We teach them the right way. I've told a lot of my athletes that are learning, maybe the hammer and weight in high school, that sometimes that can actually fight against them. So they say Army snipers recruit women. They like training women more than men, because men learn how to shoot a gun from their grandpa or from their father, and they had all these bad habits. Women have no habits, so they're starting from scratch. So I like doing that in the javelin throw. So I like doing that really across the board in most of my throws. The hammer is another one where teaching them from A to Z has been our bread and butter. So I think my calling card as a coach has been taking athletes that were probably underrated in high school, or that everybody, for the most part, slept on. And then we built them up and made them better. We took all in the same year. We had 3 guys walk onto the throw squad. And then the next year, they were medalists at the conference championship. So, to do that as sophomores was just terrific. And it takes a big belief in themselves, a big belief in what we're building. So, again, that's probably the more rewarding than taking, a girl that started at 48 feet in the shot put to 50 feet in the shot put, at least in my mind. And don't get me wrong, that's a challenge a lot of times too.
So you've had some success too. Going back to that hammer situation, are you a heel toe? What's your philosophy on that? Do you do heavy balls, light balls, short wire? Because I fell in love with hammer.
Yeah.
and I'm constantly studying hammer and talking to different people about hammer, because I want to grow hammer in the state of Texas. And, I feel through our summer programs and what we do in our summer track, hammer is becoming more popular and we're seeing more and more kids get that. But then again, I don't know if their techniques are perfect or if they
And maybe
understand.
getting the bad habits.
Yeah, the bad
Yeah,
habits.
yeah, there we go.
So, blame that on me. So,
Well, and but again, you're finding them opportunities, right? And so that's a huge part of what you're doing is helping them get to the next level, helping them get a little bit of school paid for. So again, there's nothing wrong with that, and that's what a great calling that is, Coach. But yeah, everybody's a little bit different, so I kind of build around their skill sets. So with a lot of my recruits, I'm going to tell them I don't want them to fit my system. Right. We want to build around good fundamentals, but then I want to build around what they have. So, Joe Kovac said it looked like Ryan Krauser, right? That's two different builds, two different body types, two different engines. Fabry with, the new start and shock. But so there's a lot of different ways to do the same event, right? And so we see that across the board. So, the world record, I believe, was set with a 3-turn in the hammer throw. So why am I trying to make everybody a 4-turn, right? I think Rudy's U.S. record is still a 3-turn. And so, we have plenty of toe turners, a toe and 3 heels. One of my girls, Bree, does 4 heels. Again, there's plenty of different ways to do it. We just build around what you're comfortable with, what you're confident in. And then obviously, we want to build on it. We want good fundamentals. We want stronger positions that we can flow through. But yeah, look at what you're good at, what we can improve on, eliminate weaknesses. It's, that stuff is the same across the board.
Yeah, for sure. Now, you've mentioned the word walk on a couple of times, and to some high school athletes, that's kind of like, ooh, I'm not going to walk on. Why?
Right.
I'm not going to do that. Tell us why track and field really is open-minded, encourages walk-ons, if that makes sense.
Right. Well, a lot of times we want to give you a chance, right? So,
Yeah.
and sometimes, we're paying scholarships based on a prediction of what we think you're going to score at the conference championship. So if, a lot of high schoolers are not going to be scoring points right away. If you're it's tough to predict a 17, 18-year-old male going against 22 and 23-year-old men. And then again, you're taking shot put and discus throwers, and well, can they become a weight thrower? Can they become a hammer thrower? Can they become a javelin thrower? So we've got a lack of evidence that we're trying to base this on. So to take a chance on yourself, and again, from walk on to scholarship is maybe not the biggest jump, but from walk on to conference medalist, well, that should be heavily rewarded with scholarship money. And so we, it's just like any job. If you're the top salesman at the company, you're probably getting a raise, right? And so that's the same way we look at it. So find a system that you want to be a part of, find a school that you want to be a part of, find a coach that you want to work with, a team that you want to get to practice with, and let the scholarship money and your performances take care of themselves.
You were hired by Coach Olson, legendary track and field coach, legendary throws coach.
Absolutely.
I don't want to say you stepped in some big shoes. They might have been boots, but but what was that like coming? Because that was a big jump for you in your coaching career.
Absolutely. So I was fortunate that Coach Derek Yush at Alabama hooked me up with a phone call with Coach Olson.
Oh, really? Okay.
And so he recommended me for that job, and Coach Olson, I think, sent me a text, which he's not known to do, and just asked if we could have a phone call. And I said, yeah, absolutely. And so that was my first question to him. I said, you're a throws coach. Why in the world are you hiring a throws coach? And, his answer was pretty plain that, the time commitment of being a throws coach is can make for a long day. So to be the best head coach that he can be, he needed to step away from that, and that his time commitment needed to be applied to being a head coach. And man, you said big shoes, quite literally big shoes. Man, what a great guy to learn from. So So many of the fundamentals that I thought I knew got improved by being around Coach Olson. I would even say that, so he was pretty exhausted from working with throws by the time that I got there, that he only worked with the throws with our multis crew. So he would coach them in their shot, coach them in their discus, coach them in their javelin. And then when I would talk a little bit about technique, we might have a brief conversation about, well, this kid needs this or this kid needs that. But what I really learned from him was his attention to detail. And so even with the multi-event athletes, when the right foot gets under you, he didn't want it just okay or just pretty good. He wanted it perfect. So to learn some of those aspects from him, because, again, I build around the athlete. I'm a little more loose with certain positions, like, okay, if we miss this, we're going to make up for it here. We can hit this a little bit better. So that cleaned up a lot of my coaching. Another aspect that I really learned from Coach Olson is one, I think every single athlete and every single coach on his team respected Coach Olson. Not everyone liked him, but everyone respected Coach Olson. He treated people right. He listened to his athletes. He listened to his coaches. And again, I talked earlier, I want to find athletes that are going to be great people. Coach Olson was a much better person than he ever was a throws coach, and he was a terrific throws coach. Tremendous throws coach, even better person. And I know that Coach Olson would rather hear that too.
You take that system over for him, and then there's a transition. Man, you're having great success. You've taken some of his athletes, molding them into your thinking and belief, and really take them to the next level with that. How? Because you got some, I don't want to say someone kind of looking over you, but how?
Right. Well, one, there's no way that I have the success I did without what Coach Olson built over 23 years, right?
Yeah.
So standing on the shoulders of giants and all those things. So he built a great squad. He built a history of throwing, a great all-around track and field team. So a lot of the local high schools all knew SFA track and field. They all knew Coach O. So it made recruiting a little bit easier. It made kids buying in a little bit easier. We had student athletes that were respectful because that's how he taught them how to show up to practice on time and to say yes sir and no sir and yes ma'am and no ma'am. So that made everything across the board easier. And then I've got some different coaching points than he does, and some athletes need a different stimulus, right? So I'm a big catch side hammer coach, right? Like we're going to drill that. We're going to drill our positions, nonstop. So my student athletes, are probably tired of hearing me say 1, 2, 3, 0, 1, 2, 3, 0. And we're going to emphasize the catch side on all these drills. So Trenton Bridges, who broke our school record in the hammer throw, really took a liking to that and performed really, really well. So not only did he throw better than ever, but he threw more consistently than ever. And so, we did really well. And I think we ended up breaking